This episode was made possible thanks to generous supporters on Patreon. Good day everyone and welcome to my YouTube series dedicated to your questions and my answers. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you to all of you who support me on Patreon and make all of this happening, these videos, the questions, the Dr. Zerner Guitar Lab and playthroughs and everything. It really means a lot to me. In the last episode I was supposed to have one more question, but somehow I messed up and I didn't include it in the episode, so I'm going to put this question in today's video. So let's get started. Well, my question was brought to mind from last month's Q&A. The Seducer's Diary is a great song. My question is about the video. It is a cool video. How did it come about? Who came up with the concept? Who were the actors? Anything else you want to add about it? So, The Seducer's Diary is a song that I wrote after the Søren Kierkegaard's book. And I was very impressed by this story, and I couldn't leave the book until I finished the story, and I really wanted to transfer everything that I felt into music somehow. And this is how I came up with this theme, which is very simple one. And so forth. And at a certain point I heard that all of my friends are actually humming this melody, and then I decided probably this song will be the hit of the album, and this is why I decided to make a music video. And I was thinking a lot what this music video could be, and I decided that it could be interesting if it could represent the story in the book, but happening in modern times. And this is why I asked a friend of mine, Victoria Ivanova, to represent Cordelia in the book. And the guy was suggested by the actual director of the video. And these are the actors. They aren't actually actors, they're just ordinary people, but probably this is even better because it looks somehow more natural. The director of the video is also a friend of mine from school. His name is Boris Katsunov, and he shot the cinematic part of the video. But then I decided that the cinematic part doesn't correspond really well with the dynamic of the song, the way I felt it. So this is why I decided to include the band's shots. And this is how we went somewhere, found out a cool spot, and we shot it within a couple of hours. It was October, and it was one of the last sunny days, and right after that it was supposed to become suddenly very cold, and I remember that everything was very, very forced to happen just this weekend because it was the last chance to shoot outside. Then we just started working on editing the video and achieving the dynamics that I wanted to feel from this music video. The editing actually was done by me and my friend Nikolina Atanasova, and we spent a couple of days editing and moving things back and forth and doing some color corrections and things like that, and basically this is how the video actually happened. Mine from last time, please. And have you ever considered a keyboard-driven project album, since you are a good keyboard player as well? You definitely have the skill and the creative mind. I think I would be awesome. That is, I think that would be awesome. First of all, apology again for the delayed answer. I've been thinking a lot actually about doing something more keyboard oriented, and as a matter of fact, I was even thinking about doing a piano DVD, because in all of my albums there are sections or full tracks which are entirely keyboard based, piano in particular. And the reason I did this is because Tony McAlpine is one of my inspirations, and since he plays in all of his albums a piece by Chopin, and I like this idea a lot, and I decided to do the same type of thing in my albums, but to do my own pieces. And this is how I started doing piano stuff in every album. I think that it's already getting there to have enough material for a DVD, but it will be a difficult task to do, because I want to have a nice studio and nice big real grand piano, and it to be shot properly, and this requires a lot of resources, time wise and financial wise as well, and I'm not sure when exactly it will happen. But besides that, I am planning for a long time to do parallel project of mine, which will be a little bit more different music, probably really a little bit more keyboard driven, and it will be more like post-rock and ambient and I don't know, whatever comes. I will let you know when I'm ready to start with this project. Hi Alex, happy Easter to you too. Glad to see that you're doing well in these trying times. We're here for you and want to see you succeed beyond your wildest dreams. My only question for you is, can you show us any techniques you may use to memorize a musical piece? This is my question for Ask Alexandra. Thank you for the interesting question, and I hope that I will be able to answer it helpfully enough. First, I would like to divide learning of songs into different processes, and the first one is something that is rather preparation, so you will be able to learn songs efficiently. The first thing is to listen to a lot of music, all kinds of music constantly. This is really super important. And the other thing is to learn to listen selectively, which is of course self-evident, but many people actually don't pay enough attention to this. You should be able to hear every single instrument in a song clear enough so you can distinguish what they're playing. And after that, you should also be able to identify something that I call archetypes in music. We use all kinds of building blocks that are proven to work over time, and basically we keep using such small chunks of music and to construct all of the piece using these chunks, and most of them are used very widely in all kinds of music. And when you start recognizing these chunks, especially when it comes to guitar-oriented music, there are so many patterns in these solos, and at certain point you can hear something very, very complex, very fast, and you say, okay, how I'm supposed to learn this? I mean, this is crazy. And then if you're able to slow it down a little bit, and you can figure out that it's actually a repeating pattern. You can especially hear that in any neoclassical shred and things like that. Of course, it's more difficult to hear such patterns in jazz and fusion and little bit more complex music, but there are still patterns. They're difficult to recognize and they're a little bit more complex, but they are there. So these chunks and patterns are the things that I call archetypes in music. And when you get used to recognizing these parts, it becomes much easier to memorize music, because when you learn something, you already see the chunks, just like you would memorize a poem or something else. It has a structure, it has meaningful chunks. You don't need to learn letter by letter, but you learn word by word or sentence by sentence or different sections all at once as a whole chunk. And then the actual learning a song, the way I approach it, and so far I think it's efficient. Probably in the future I may find even more efficient way, but so far this is the best I came up with. I listen to the song many times before I even start learning it. I listen to it as many times as possible, especially if my time is limited. And it was quite often a case when I needed to join a band for a tour on gigs or whatever, and I have like 10 days to learn 20 songs or something like that, and I need to act very quickly. So I just start listening like crazy all the time until I almost hate the song. And in such a way it gets etched in your brain to such a degree that when you start learning it, all the pieces automatically fit there into this structure that is already in your mind, because you've been listening to this song many times, and it makes it easier to put the pieces together when you start learning them. The next thing would be to start analyzing this song and to find the structure, to write it down on a paper. For example, intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, whatever type of song is. And once you have it on a paper, it becomes much easier to do. Then you can transcribe the chord progression. It helps a lot. Even if you're learning just the solos or just riffs or whatever, it's always a good idea to have this background of what's happening in the whole song at that time. And I see that many people actually, especially when they learn solos, they have no idea whatsoever what's happening in the song at this moment. What the bass is playing, what's the beat, what's the chord progression, what the instruments are playing at all, what's the rhythm guitar or the keyboards or whatever. And all of these components are very important, and they're intertwined with the melody or the solo or the canto or whatever the main melody is. Always pay attention to what the other instruments are playing, not just your own part, but everything else. In such a way you will gain wider perspective on the song, and it will be easier to keep the structure from not falling apart. The last thing is to learn the song by sections. For example, start with the verse and just keep learning and playing it until you feel some confidence in it. It doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be good enough so you can proceed to the next part. Otherwise, it becomes a total mess. When you play one part and you directly move to the other one, and suddenly there are some chords or figures or rhythmic patterns that start to mess up, and then you need to go all over again, and it becomes a total chaos. So what I do is just make sure that the first part that I learn, I know it well enough, and when I move to the next part, after I learn it, I go back to the first one just to establish it. And it's pretty much like this spaced repetition system that's used when you learn languages and all kinds of stuff. Basically, you learn something, and after a certain period you go back to something that you already learned, so you can refresh it and make it establish the knowledge. And basically this is what I use. I try to transcribe the song on paper as much as it's possible. I write not just chord progressions, I transcribe on paper main melodies or rhythmic structures or things like that. And it makes it easier to remember, because just the physical act of writing something on paper makes you focus in a different way. Some people think that it's the same as typing on a computer, but it's not like that. The pure physical act of doing something that requires a little bit more effort, you need more focus to do that. For example, if you want just to type one letter on the keyboard, you just press the key and it's all done. But if you need to write a single letter on a piece of paper, it requires much more effort, and precisely this effort is the thing that makes you focus better and therefore memorizing it better. I was wondering if you could describe your daily practice routine. This is a very interesting question, which I'm not entirely sure how to answer. You know that I play many instruments, and therefore it becomes very, very hard to manage the practice efficiently. And most of the time some of the instruments suffer, and I end up with situations when I don't play them for weeks or even months sometimes. And my practice routine depends very much on my schedule or what is the current work I'm doing. For example, recently I finished recording guitars and keyboards for Alberto Rigoni's album Odd Times, where also Marco Minnemann plays drums, and it's an instrumental prog project. And I needed to put a lot more effort in my keyboard playing for this album, because there are a lot of keyboard solos and things that are more challenging than usual, so I needed to put a little bit more focus on the keyboard. So it was mostly balanced between guitar and keyboard, while the other instruments like flute and mandolin or whatever else I come up with just stayed in the background until this project is over. But I've never practiced more than 6 hours per day, and the reason for that is that I think that it's not efficient practice. After you play more than 6 hours, the chances are that your brain will be too tired already, your ears will be too tired already, and there is a risk of overstraining your muscles. And the muscles that you engage in playing, no matter what kind of instrument you're playing, these are repeating tasks, and when you repeat a very specific task way too much, it causes a lot of strain and trauma to all the muscles. I usually do a lot of breaks when I practice. On every 15 minutes of playing, I take like 5 minutes break or something like that. Currently, I rarely practice one instrument more than 2 hours or 3 in some more extreme cases, because I've got a lot of work, I've got students I need to make these videos, and I've got session work and all kinds of things that I need to do, so time management is quite tricky. I always try to warm up with some technical exercise, no matter what kind of instrument I play, but I start with some technical exercise and play them at least 20 or 30 minutes. This is how I start. And of course, I stretch my muscles and things like that. I made a video about it. You can watch it up here. Usually I don't practice more than 2 different instruments in the same day because I'm not efficient. I mean, if I invest 3 hours in one instrument and then I invest another 3 hours in another instrument, and then I'm not efficient anymore. And I feel that the third instrument I have to do, not I want to do. And if you reach the point where you have to play your instrument, probably you need to rearrange something in your schedule or your mindset too.
A somewhat unfamiliar conception for the average mind.
Hello Alexandra, I was wondering to what extent your music is shaped by the tastes, preferences of your fans. Are there songs that you have composed without any audience person cat in mind? This is a very good question and I thank you for that. I've never really composed music which was entirely... Okay, no, I'm lying. At certain point I was composing a lot of music for advertising and things like that, which is basically the type of music that I hate, and I do it entirely for certain audience because I've been ordered to do something. It's just a work assignment that doesn't have to do anything with expressing my own thoughts and feelings through music, but it's just technical work. When it comes to my own music, which I do for my albums, I mostly have my own thoughts and feelings in mind, and I don't really care how much people will like this particular music. I mean, of course I care, but this is not the leading motive. I want to express what is in me, and when it's real, then people like it.
Well, duh.
And if I start going too much for what a certain audience could like, ignoring my own perspective and my own feelings and thoughts that I want to express through music, and then it becomes fake and it becomes like the commercial music that's money and reaching the widest audience possible. Of course, one needs to care for their audience, but at the same time you need to stay true to yourself, so this is a very hard balance. I always have this inner struggle where exactly to draw the line between that, because I don't want to disappoint my fans, but on the other side I don't want to neglect my own musical needs for the sake of satisfying expectations. I hope this answers the question. Hi Alexandra, I don't have any tattoos myself, but I've always been interested in other people's ink and what it represents. Will you please tell me about your tattoos and what they mean to you? Thank you. Tattoos, well, I've got several. Not all of them are visible though, so probably I will start explaining chronologically.
Adverb. In a way that follows the order in which events or records occurred.
This is the oldest one. I doubt that you can see anything, it's too smudged already and needs to be done again. It's the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland, which is one of my favorite books, and this is the original artwork by John Tennell. Basically, I've got the concept of putting some additional characters here from the same book because they represent different aspects of my own personality, and this is the reason I put this in the first place. The next, I think this was the next. It reads, "Think before you act." This is something that has big importance to me because it keeps me sane and not being too impulsive in my decisions. And also, it's a very good thing to show to someone else when they're impulsive. And I actually thought, I don't know, probably 3 years before I do this tattoo, so it fulfills itself, so to speak. The others are, I've got one here, which is quite self-explanatory. It's my logo that actually I designed. And I've got another one here. And these are symbols from my second album's artwork. The album is called Aspects, you can hear it up here. These are astrological symbols and also symbols used in alchemy to represent elements and things like that. I've explained the whole concept of this album on my website, and I will put a link down in the description for everyone who's interested. These are pretty new, I mean, in the last couple of years. These are platonic solids, and this on the bottom is the flower of life. And the reason I put all of these in this order is because they represent, different levels of complexity. And generally, this is part of a bigger project because I've got a project for full sleeve, which will combine different elements from science, esoterics, and all kinds of things, because it will represent my vision of the world, of the universe, and I've got some sort of holistic approach, because I think that one can't really understand the life and everything else when they're looking from just one perspective. And this is the basic idea behind the whole project. So this is one part. Another part is some of you know that I'm crazy about Nordic stuff, Scandinavian and whatever coming from this part of the world. And these are Old Nordic symbols. This is called Vegvisir, and you can find a lot of information online about it. It's a symbol that is supposed to show you the right way. So whenever you go, to make sure that you will find your right path. These are runes. This is the name of Snotra, which is a Nordic goddess of knowledge and teaching, and the others are just symbols of character traits that I want to develop in myself. These are some, again, Nordic knotwork, a tree which could be, it is a symbol of the tree of life, and there is a moon and sun here which represents the duality. And this symbol here is something that appears a lot in both Nordic and Celtic culture, and basically it represents the active feminine origin and energy, and basically characters like Morrigan, Freya, and so forth. And basically there should be additional elements here, but you know, it's very time consuming and expensive. So one day it will happen, but so far that's all. So that was everything for this Asking Alexandra episode. I hope you find it interesting. I hope you found it interesting. And you know the drill. If you like what I do, support me on Patreon up here, and the links down in the description. And subscribe to my channel, you know. And see you next time, and stay safe. Bye.